Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. It's a second day for two amazing days. Again, I'm Nadia Taheri, GDG Cloud organizer and Human Techmaker ambassador in Canada. I have the honor to introduce you Meghan Mehta. She is Android developer advocate at Google. Today, she will talk about how you can make your first app with Jetpack Compose. And yes, during the presentations, the Q&A session will be open, so feel free to ask any questions. So I will ask Meghan to join me on the floor if she is ready to be here. Again, thank you so much to be here today. So the time is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here right now. Happy International Women's Day. I'm going to talk to you about Jetpack Compose, and I don't know, it's going to be great. So to start off with, who am I? I'm Meghan. I'm a developer advocate at Google. I've been here for 3 years, and I love sharing Android with people like you. I went to USC. I studied computer science. And outside of work, I love singing, dancing, biking, weightlifting, cooking, all of that. So, what is Jetpack Compose? Jetpack Compose is a modern toolkit designed to simplify UI development. Combines reactive programming model with the conciseness and ease of use of the Kotlin programming language. It's fully declarative, meaning you can describe your UI by calling a series of functions that transform data into a UI hierarchy. When the underlying data changes, the framework automatically re-executes these functions, supporting and updating the hierarchy for you. I know that sounded like a lot, and we're going to kind of really get into what it is, how it feels to code with it throughout this talk. Okay, so if you're comfortable with making Android apps, you've probably seen this screen before, and this is like the template screen. Before you want to get into a Jetpack Compose app, make sure your Android Studio is updated. And instead of choosing something like empty project, which you usually would, now you can choose empty compose activity. So the rest of that flow will be the same, and then you'll get into Android Studio, and you'll see something you probably haven't seen before. And that to the right is called the preview pane. So the preview pane is a really cool feature that allows you to see the changes in your app's UI in real time, meaning that you don't have to compile the whole app, which is super cool, especially when you have an app that takes a little bit of time to compile, but you're just kind of looking at for a UI change. So I have a little demo of, I don't know how to play this from here. I need help playing the videos. Okay, minor technical difficulty.
So how is your slide right now working on the video part? Can you just play just click play or something in the slides?
Meghan? It doesn't look like it's letting me from my point of view.
So let me check if we have. Did you share the slides with our team already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's check if I can share my screen so you can.
I'm gonna re-ping them to you.
Play it. Okay, yeah. Can you? Because the slide deck is not accessible to me now.
Sorry, everyone, for the minor inconvenience. We'll be back soon. I just pinged you.
Okay. Cool. Let's see if I'm able to.
Okay.
Dot, dot, dot. Okay, just give us a second. Okay, I need access to the video, by the way. So if you can give me access to that video.
Shouldn't you
I
have
just-
access if you're in the slides?
I just requested. It should come as an email.
Okay, there's like a few videos in this because I didn't want to switch between Android Studio and my slides. So if you want to just like ask for permission to all of them right up top.
Let's see. Okay. Did you give me access for the one that I requested already?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I can actually probably go through and give you access.
Let me do this. And then presenter view. Okay. So I'm able to play, I guess.
I think I gave you access to everything.
Okay. So you can see it here.
Cool. Yes, guys, we're back. We're back. We got it. We worked through this.
Okay. I am going to just forward your slides and then just remove myself from the screen.
Okay, sounds good. I'll just tell you when to go to the
Okay.
next slide. So if you can press play again. This is like a little demo that shows you how seamless it is to use the preview pane. Play one more time. What I'm doing in this is I'm updating the text, and on the preview pane, it's updating in real time. So next slide. So the provided code in main activity includes some new things that you haven't heard about before if you haven't worked with Jetpack Compose. So let's start with default preview, which I just updated. Default preview is a function that helps the preview know what to display. So this is what allows your app, what allows you to see what your app looks like without having to build your entire app. In order to be a preview function, you have to add a preview annotation, and you can have multiple previews for the same app. So for example, you could have multiple previews to pass different types of data, or you could have one for dark theme or light theme. It's up to you. You can have multiple previews, and it's very cool to see. Next slide. Next, we're going to look at the set content function within the onCreate function. This is used to define your layout through composable functions. All functions marked with the composable annotation can be called from set content function or from other composable functions. The annotation tells the Kotlin compiler that this function is used by Jetpack Compose to generate the UI, which leads me to my next point. Next slide. What's a composable function? What is it? I've been talking about it a lot. Oh, go back one. What's a composable function? So compose apps are made up of composable functions, which are regular functions marked with an annotation composable. This annotation tells Compose to add special support to the function for updating and maintaining your UI over time and allows it to call other composable functions. In essence, a composable function allows you to put up a part of the UI. By making small reusable composables, it's easy to build up a library of UI elements used in your app, and each one can be responsible for part of the screen and edited independently. So let's talk about some of the differences between composables and regular functions. Next slide. Here are the differences. You add the composable annotation before, of course. Next. Composable function names are capitalized. Next. And composable functions can't return anything because it's just a part of the UI. It doesn't need to return a value. And next slide. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's actually like jump into the code and like see how it works. So this is the greeting function. And currently it takes in a name and says hello to that person. But we want to update the text to wish somebody Happy International Women's Day. Next slide and play video. Okay, try again. Cool. So you can see in the preview that the text is now wishing Android a happy International Women's Day. I don't know anyone named Android, but if that person's out there, that's pretty cool. But for everyone not named Android, we should change the name. So in the default preview, pass in a different name. And Cooper, I'm going to make sure you're added to that video. Okay, you can go to the next video. So cool. I wished myself a happy International Women's Day. Very creative of me. But let's take this and run it on an emulator or a physical device to check it out. Next slide. Okay, so when I ran it, it's still saying Happy International Women's Day to Android. So let's figure out why. Next slide and play the video. So what happened is you only changed the name argument that was passed into the default preview, which only controls what shows up in the preview tab. So to update it on a physical device or an emulator, you need to update it in set content. So when we do that, we have Happy International Women's Day, Meghan. Yay, to me or to you, whoever. So, okay, we're wishing Happy International Women's Day to someone. Cool, but I don't know, we could make it look cuter. We could do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change the background color. And we're going to do that by adding a surface. You're going to need to surround your text with a surface, which is a container that represents a section of UI where you can alter the appearance, such as the background color or border. Next slide. Okay, so we just watched the code happen. Let's talk about what just happened. To surround the text with the surface, that's what you have to do first. You're going to highlight the line of text and Alt-Enter for Windows or Option-Enter for Mac. Then you're going to select Surround with Widget. Then from there you go to Surround with Container, and the default container gives you is box, but you can change it into another container type. So you delete box and type surface instead. The surface container has a color parameter. So if you type color and that add a period, you see a pop-up showing a bunch of different color options, which is one of the cool features of Android Studio. It's always trying to help you out in any way that it can. So I chose magenta because of my top, but you could choose your favorite. And then when you hit build and refresh, your text is surrounded by the colors that you choose. And next slide. So this is what the app looks like so far. looks good. But we could add a little padding around it. It looks like a little tight around the text. So we're going to use a modifier. Next slide. A modifier is used to augment or decorate a composable. One modifier that we're going to use today is the padding modifier, which applies space around the element, in this case, adding space around the text, and is accomplished by using the modifier.padding function. So next video. So all we did here is we added a padding modifier to the text with a size of 24 dp and clicked build and refresh. Next slide. And that's it. That's your final International Women's Day app. Thank you for taking time to learn with me. Next slide. And this is my LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to me. Would love to meet you and chat with you. I'm on LinkedIn.
Thank you again, Meghan. It was very great presentations, and I'm pretty sure we have some time for some questions. So I will check on the YouTube link to know some questions.
Can everyone send their questions through my LinkedIn so I can hit everybody's?
Perfect. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. So yes, you have a little bit more time for two. I don't know if Chen she's here or not, or you are waiting 10 minutes more.
Yes. So let's have maybe like a 10-minute break. This session just ended early a little bit, and then you can grab some water, just food, and then if you are actually in the Pacific time zone, you can even like quickly have lunch since this is like 12 p.m. And then we will see each other at 12:30 p.m. PST time with the next speaker. So I will just say that this is a lightning talk, telemonitoring assistant in smart homes. Just stay tuned for that one. And then I will actually just share my screen okay, actually who is here? Maybe we can even start now, but we have our next speaker just popping up now. Maybe it's great to have her even now. So are you ready, Hui, with your presentation to start now?
I'm ready, but I have a question. And for share my for share the PPT, I share my screen or
Yes,
I
will introduce you a little bit before.
The button it has the share, so
yeah.
The share is share my screen.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
I will introduce you, and after that, the floor it was yours.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, thank you so much. And yes, we have more time, but Chen, she's here. She's ready to present her work of her PhD. So I know Chen in University of Sherbrooke. She was on my first Women Day in University of Sherbrooke. She worked on an amazing project to create a smart home. So her presentation today is about telemonitoring, and assistant in a smart home. Again, during the presentation, feel free to ask any questions on the Q&A session. Chen, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadia. Now I will share with my screen. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm very excited to join the International Women's Day held by the Women Tech Maker. So my name is Chen. I'm a PhD student in Sherbrooke University. I'm from Canada, Quebec. I'm very excited to share my research here. So today I want to present my subject is telemonitoring and assistance in smart home. I will introduce the contents like the first is introduction, the second is telemonitoring and assistance system in Domus Lab, the third is contribution. The first is introduction. The Canada's population's engine. So it's like other countries in the world. From the first picture, we can see the proportion of aged 65 years old above will rise around 17% to 21% over the 10 years. So we can see the government face high healthcare costs of aging population. From the second picture, we can see the Canadian aged 65 years old just makes up 1/5 of population of the total Canadian, but they spend more around half of the healthcare spending of the total population. And the government and some organization propose engine in place to help the seniors to live at their home safely and independently, and help them have a good quality of life. Most of the seniors prefer to live in their home as long as possible. Even some seniors have disabilities like cognitive deficits. From the second picture, we can see the population aged 65 years old above, almost 92%. They live in private dwelling at their home. Just 7.9% live in collective dwelling, like nursing home or residence. The second part, I want to introduce the telemonitoring and assistance system in Domus Lab. So how can we use the new technology to help the frail old people to live at their home safely and independently? So the smart home is a very great opportunity for us. Considering the privacy issues of installing the cameras at the home, most of the smart home use the ambient sensors like motion sensor detect movements, and the door sensor detect the people go outside or come back. So then we use the Internet of Things, IoT infrastructure to connect the sensor network. And then we collect the time series sensor data continuously. The second picture I show here is the Domus Lab. It's a simulated real smart home in the kitchen, living, or bedroom, or washroom, fully installed with ambient sensors. So then we connect the sensor data from the smart home. After we get this kind of sensor data, we can do the human activity recognition. Now we based on the ambient sensor data, and because when the people are getting old, they prefer stay at home than when they are young. So we focus on the indoor activity of the daily life, and we want to focus on the the complex activity like eating, cooking, and hygiene. And for the approach, currently we use logical-based to the activity recognition, use the inference rules. And for my research, I will use the conventional machine learning. Like from the first picture, we can see we get the sensor data, then we do the feature extraction, variance or mean. Then we do the model training, like hidden Markov model to do the activity recognition for the sleep, watching TV. And I also focus on the deep learning model. We can see from the second picture, we directly to extract the feature from the ambient sensor and to do the activity recognition. We can use the recurrent neural network or LSTM, which are very good for the serious data. And I will introduce our telemonitoring project in our domains. According to the service of the telemonitoring, we have for the service for the security. Example is safety cook. We have from the first picture. So we monitor the people, seniors for the cook. Sometimes they forgot to turn off the oven, but they leave home. So which is the potential it's emergency. So we can prevent this kind of emergency. And the second service is rehabilitation. So some seniors have cognitive deficits, or they have a stroke. And after they come back from the hospital, they stay at home for the recovery. The doctor can use telemonitoring to monitor the recovery status of the stroke. So the third service is for the chronic disease. For example, diabetes. The clinicians can monitor for the seniors if they eating well, or if they eat good nutrition, and if they do the regularly exercises, which all these activities can reduce the risk of the health problem. So for the second picture, for the I show here is the NEARS. It's our Domus NEARS platform. So it has the telemonitoring. It can generate the report for the clinicians to analyze the activities for the seniors. And the purpose of telemonitoring, we want to assist the seniors to special needs. Like here, I give an example for in our project for the meal preparation assistance. So our purpose to help the people who have brain injury, they have cognitive impairment, so they can't. It's hard for them to do the complex activity. So we can help them to do the complex activity like the cook. So they can cook what they need. So improve their good nutrition. So it's very good for the health. And our contribution. So for the telemonitoring and assistance system, so we can improve home care of the aging people in the community. So then we can reduce the cost of the health care. Also, we can help the seniors to live safely and independently. Thank you very much. So any questions?
Thank you so much, Chen. Your presentation was very great. So we have some questions, yes. One question from CCH5NG. Since I would not expect a senior to be very tech savvy, does the system require much training for users? This is the first part of the questions. After that, we have another part. So
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Could you repeat it?
Yes, you can see also on your screen, but I will repeat. Since I would not expect a senior to be very tech savvy, so some people with age don't know very well tech. Does the system require much training for user?
No, actually, because we already deploy this kind of in Montreal or Toronto, so for the users, because we adapt the interface for the older people. It's we don't have much. Maybe we need a little training for them how to use it, how to monitoring or assist. But it's easy for friendly for the senior people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the same attendees ask you again some other questions. Or are advices set up installed for the user, but you pretty answer all these questions. But how do you find user for your study?
Yes, actually, in our project we already have some participants for the seniors, which is located in the Montreal residence for the senior people. Like now, currently we have 38 smart home in Montreal, so we have a lot of include some seniors. Have some people have cognitive problem or have some seniors health older people. So we have yeah.
You have a networking of the age people.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And another is sorry for my pronunciation of your name. Ask you what technology did you use on the front end and the back end to implement the system? Great question, I think.
Okay, it's good question. For the front end, we use the JavaScript, and also we based off we base the React, so for our framework, and for the backend, we use the Fast API, and we also connect with the server database.
Thank you so much. Now we don't have another question, but I can ask you one question because I know your laboratory. We have a small home, virtual home.
Yeah, yes.
Very real home, and she's done. Okay, maybe we don't have the time for this question, but I will ask her later. So it was a very pleasure to have you, Yeonchun, and the next session will be with Navati, with some great presentations. And Navati, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I don't know why I kick. So my time is finished.
It's okay. It's okay. Just yes, we have a few time for this question. Maybe another one in the chat. What's the difference you see on the this small home you have on the laboratory with the real one?
Yes. We simulated the real smart home. So it's the size with one bedroom, one kitchen, and one living room, and with the bedroom.
Okay,
So,
but
yeah.
on the data set we have some. You find some big difference between these two steps or not? It's a very realistic simulator.
The data difficulty is because the physical for the sensors installed we is like the real smart home, but here the data is because the people we live, because for the real life is just one senior people live in the smart home, because in our lab so it's us, so this is a little challenge for the person itself, but all the physical things is the same. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe I will ask There's one question now on the chat. Is it open source, your project, you know?
No, we don't. Sorry, we are not open source.
It's not, but you plan to do on the open source or never?
I am not sure in our director of the domains. So if we open source, maybe in future we consider of open source. So, but we don't reach this stage.
Okay, well, I understand clearly. It was a great question because now all is open source. And maybe I will ask you another question before the end. You know, this year, the thematic is progress, not perfections. I would like to know what do you mean? What do you this means for you? Progress, not perfections.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a very good question. So for mine, it's what I'm feeling. So we improve every day. So for the technology, for the life, for the everything. So we are not perfect. We today, we are little grow. We are better than yesterday. So for all include all the life, all the technology, everything. So I think it's we. I mean, we are progress, we are improve, we are getting better. So it's my feeling. So
yes, it's a good answer. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. I think we don't have any question now, but some people was very confusing by it was not open source, so it was very sometimes you know. But thank you again, and we don't have any question, but oh. There have one comment. I can read you this comment of at least until is unclear in the research, it cannot be open source due to publication reasons. I've had that before. Is because is publication reasons? Is not open source, or is have any other reason for that?
oh, it's a very good question. So because it's not it's I mean I am researching inside of lab. It's not me decide if we open source or not. So yeah, it's very challenging question for me.
Yes.
But I can bring the question to my lab director to discuss. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, also maybe I think we have some privacy and critical data set maybe is very difficult to share.
Yes, because for the data set is have the privacy issues. So it's for the people. So it's hard to share. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we don't have any other questions, so thank you so much. And it was very my pleasure to introduce you today. And
Thank you for having me. So yeah.
And maybe the next session is a little bit before the time is Navati will be moderator of this next sessions. I think Navati will be she will be here in a very few minutes. It's a Carol.
Yes.
Okay. So Carol, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Carol. I'm a Women Tech Maker Ambassador, a GDG organizer for the Tampa Bay area, and a GDG mentor for the Southeast region of the U.S. I work as a web application developer. And today, I'm really happy that you all could join us for this next session with Navati. She's also a Women Tech Maker Ambassador and an iOS developer at Loblaw Digital. So in this session, she's going to talk about how you can get started with Firebase Firestore. And during the session, you can post your questions in the chat. And if she's ready, I'll hand it over to Navati.
Carol, Actually, we are having lots of technical issues today. I don't know why. Mercury is in retrograde or something. It should be. Sorry, like everyone. So we are waiting for our next speaker to just come on time here. Meanwhile, like I said before this session, so just grab some waters, stretch a little bit on your chairs. If you're like on the couch, just move a little bit, and then we will just start shortly. Once again, sorry about that. And then, yeah, today is kind of not the day, but yeah, we will just make it up with the raffle prizes that we are giving out. So please make sure, fill out the feedback survey that you are getting from us, so that way you can win like lots of like other, gifts. Yes. So now actually I see our next speaker joining us. So I will hand it over to her. And then Carol, thank you for the introduction. That was amazing. And then, yeah, let's maybe have Navati here. Hey, Navati.
Okay, great.
Hey folks, can you guys hear me, see me?
Yes, we can hear you, see you. And then I will stop screen sharing, and then you can just share your screen if you want from the button screen share. And then, yeah, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Just give me 1 second here. So can you see my screen? Just want to confirm once again. Okay, I'll start. So thank you folks for joining this session on how to get started with Firebase Firestore. So today we learn what Firestore is and how you can adopt it in your apps. So let's get fired up. So my name is Navati and I work as an iOS engineer at Loblaw Digital in Toronto. And you can find some of my handles here. And if you'd like to connect with me for a cup of tea, which is, by the way, my favorite drink, then please do reach out. And also lately I've gotten into adopting plants. So if you want to give me some tips on how to keep them alive, then let's chat. So today I'd like to talk about Firestore, as you know, and I want to help you understand some of the core concepts so that you can go ahead and start building your app. Now, being an iOS app engineer, my examples are in the Swift language, but the code would look very similar in any other language as well. So we'll look at what Firebase is at first and see what services it provides, and then compare the two types of database, which is relational and NoSQL. And then we'll build a Firestore database together with an example. So Firebase is a platform that can support your app dev journey in multiple ways. So if you are a front-end engineer like me and you're coding for web apps or mobile apps, you focus more on the front end. And I find Firebase very handy from that perspective because they handle a lot of the backend stuff where you may not have the expertise. It also does support server-side applications, and there are many other services that they provide that can help you in maintaining and releasing your app. And I'm going to show you a list in the next slide. So when you open the Firebase console, you see a very nice, friendly, colorful web page, right? And if you look at the left panel, you can see a menu of the multiple services that Firebase offers. So there are several services for building your app. There is authentication, which can help you authenticate your app. There is also a Firestore database. That's what we're going to learn today together. And if you notice, there's also real-time database out here. This is another database service that Firebase offers, and there are some differences between the two, and I will also go over that. They also have, cloud functions, which can help you with serverless computing. There is storage, there is machine learning. There's a lot of building services for your app development. There's also a lot of popular services for release and monitoring. There's Crashalytics, which can help you keep track of your crash logs and reports. And there are many other services like Performance, Test Lab, App Distribution, and so much more, like analytics and engagement. You can do things like A/B testing, remote config. So basically, Firebase is really, really handy for app development. So let's do a quick comparison of the two types of database. There's the relational database, and then there's NoSQL. So when you think about a relational database, it is schema-based. And I'll just get into what a schema is. But typically, it is implemented as tables. With NoSQL, on the other hand, there are non-tabular formats, and we'll look at some of these non-tabular formats. But keep in mind that the two database services that we just saw with Firebase, that is real-time database as well as Firestore, both of these services are NoSQL. So you may be familiar with relational database, but let's have a quick refresher. So when we talk about relational database, think of a spreadsheet, like a Google spreadsheet. This is essentially a table. There are rows and there are columns, and there is a schema. So, things like there should be a certain number of columns. There should be a primary key so that you can uniquely identify your rows. You'd also want things like relationships between your tables. So that's what a schema is. It's an outline that describes how your database is organized. So let's look at an example. This is a list of some of my favorite TV shows, and if any of these look new, you haven't tried them, then I highly recommend that you check it out. But in this table, as you can see, that there are various columns, and we can use the first column, the series ID, as the primary key so that we can uniquely identify each of these rows. I could have another table which would give me the episodes of these different TV shows. And then I can have the episode ID in here, the first column in here, as the primary key for this second table. And to create a relationship between these two tables, the TV series and the episodes, I would use a concept called foreign keys. So foreign keys are like a borrowed column, like a reference column. And in this case, the highlighted column, the series ID, is the foreign key, and that would help me establish a relationship between these two tables. So if you look at the first row in here, and the first row in the first table is linked to the first table. In the first table, they are linked together because of the same series ID, and so is the second row. And now we have a relationship established. Similarly, we can do that for the other rows. And so you can see that in a relational database, there are several constraints with the schema, as well as there are relationships. And with this, there is a challenge that it gets really resource intensive. So when you want to deal with more demands, then you need to scale vertically. Scaling vertically means that you're trying to invest in the processing power of your host machine. But when we talk about NoSQL does not have this rigorous schema-based approach with all these constraints and formatting rules. So scaling is faster and easier, and it can be scaled with a horizontally scaled approach, which means that you distribute the database across several machines. Here, the focus is on speeding up the queries, and it makes it very flexible to add fields. So as we just discussed, that NoSQL can be implemented as a non-tabular format. So let's look at some of these formats. There is the key value approach, where there is a key and a value. And an example of such a database is Redis. There's also the wide column-based approach, where not all rows need to have the same columns. Cassandra is one such database. We also have the graph-based DB, where entities are nodes with static relationships, like in social networks. Neo4j has this approach. And finally, we have the document-based implementation, where there is a JSON-like document, and MongoDB is such an example, and so is Firestore. So let's quickly compare what the difference between a relational database versus a NoSQL database. So as we just mentioned, that a relational database is table-based. It is schema-oriented and structure really matters. And it is typically implemented like this. NoSQL, on the other hand, is non-tabular and it is schema-less. It has less constraints and it can be implemented in various ways, as we just saw. The advantage of this is you have a more flexible structure. So relational database is still really, really great because your queries are more customizable. So if you have used SQL or SQL, you might be familiar with how flexible it can get in terms of running your queries. You can add joins, you can add a lot of filters with a where clause. So that is a great plus with relational database. On the other hand, with NoSQL, it's more applicable for scenarios where your access pattern is known. That means you know what kind of queries you plan to run. The benefit here is you have better performance and lower latency. And as we discussed, a relational database scales vertically, whereas with a NoSQL database, it scales horizontally. So if you want to kind of visualize this, think of vertical scaling as an apartment building where you stack floors, whereas with a NoSQL DB, which scales horizontally, think of it as adding more houses in the neighborhood. So it would look like this. Now let's look at some of the key features of Firestore. First, Firestore is a document-based DB. That means in here, there is a JSON-like structure. There are keys and values. So the key is the field and the value is the value that it holds. So I could have the name as the key and the value as Kelly, or age as the name and the value is 15. So you can have simple key and value fields, and you can also have nested fields, like in this example for address. So the documents are JSON-like in Firestore, but it's much more than that. I want you to keep this visual in your mind. So Firestore is a collection of documents. Collection of documents is like having a folder with many files. So let's look at an example. Let's say we're back in school and we have a database of students. I could have a student called Kelly and I can store some information in a document about her. I can say, keep track of her name, her address, her major. I could have another student called Raj and again have that similar information, right? And I would put these documents in a collection because Firestore is a collection of documents. So this would be my Firestore database. And I can also have even more information where I keep, information about the courses that these students are enrolled in. I could have a document for the algorithm course that Kelly's enrolled in and keep information like her course name, her course code, the professor, and maybe another course called C++. And now Kelly's document not only has some information, some data inside it, but it also points to this collection of documents. And as you can see, I'm using this schema. I'm using the pink color for documents and yellow for collections. I just want you to keep that in mind for all my upcoming examples as well. In the same way, Raj, his document can also point to a sub-collection of documents. And now, as you can see, things have started to get hierarchical. You can even take this a step further and have another collection of documents, maybe for the assignments that they handed in for these various courses. And now this could be how the school database looks. So this is a great advantage with Firestore. It gets pretty flexible, and I'm hoping that you are getting some idea of what a Firestore database looks like. So keep this in mind, Firestore is a collection of documents, and it always begins with a collection. At the very base, at the very root, you always begin with a collection of documents. documents have some data inside, and they can also point to another sub-collection of documents. So it can look like this alternating pattern of collection and documents. And at the base, like I said, there's just one collection of documents. I mean, it's not necessary that there's just one collection of documents, but you definitely need to start with one. You can have multiple collections. It can be parallel at the same level of collection. So for example, the first collection could be for the students and the second collection could be for the professors, right? And also when it comes to documents, the documents can point to more than one sub-collection. It's not just one. We could have our professors have documents for the other fields, like maybe the research they do and the projects they teach and the employment information. So Firestore is pretty flexible in this way. Now, when it comes to retrieving a document in Firestore, keep in mind that you're retrieving the entire document. You cannot retrieve it in part. So if you want just a couple of fields and not the rest, well, you don't have that option. So keep this in mind. So there is a limit to the size of your document. It is 1 MB and 20,000 fields. And when it comes to queries, queries are shallow, not like Lady Gaga's shallow, but like this. So let's go back in this example with the students. Let's say I want to fetch information for Kelly. When I ask for Kelly's information, then I'll get all her data from her document, but I'm not going to get any of the things that are below her or beneath her document. I'm not going to get any of this sub-collection information. So that's what we mean by shallow. When you ask for Kelly's information, you're just going to get that document and nothing below. And I also want to mention that Firestore has security rules. So security rules help you control access. You can create rules around who can access which documents and which student in which collections. So let's say, if there's a Snoopy student trying to figure out what the other student scored in another subject, well, you can prevent all of that with security rules. And security rules can also be used for creating validation rules. So if you consider grades could be a percentage. They could be numbers between 0 to 100. So you can enforce that with security rules. So even if a student is like super brilliant, they cannot get 200 out of 100. Now, I mentioned that there are two different database services by Firebase. There's the real-time database as well as Firestore. So let's compare them quickly. Real-time database is a simple JSON tree, like in this screenshot. So it does not have that collection of documents kind of a scheme that we have with Firestore. So for more complex data, Firestore is a better choice. Real-time has an extremely high uptime guarantee. Firestore's guarantee is just as good, but for more critical stuff, real-time DB would be more reliable. And when it comes to queries in real time, they are deep by default, and you can access granular data, which Firestore does not allow. Firestore is, the queries are shallow, and you would be given the entire document when you retrieve it. So now let's apply this knowledge into an actual database. Now, I love learning outside of work. I like attending meetups and conferences just like today's. And I'm guessing you guys also enjoy that since you're here. And I also like building apps, like side projects. And our field is such where there are constant updates. So I like learning through books and courses and also making connections and networking. And if you can relate to this, you might find it overwhelming like I do. I tend to look like this. I get really stressed. And so I thought, perhaps I can create an app because I'm an app developer and maintain the database for this using Firestore. So let's look at what this kind of a database would look like. So as we discussed in Firestore, it is a collection of documents. So keep this in mind. You have to begin with a collection of documents. So let's start with our base collection. We can have a collection of these different activities. I can have a document for a meetup that I attended on Android, maybe a workshop on blockchain. I could have another document for a course that I did online, and maybe a book that I read. So now I have my base collection established, and my DB is, I've begun my DB, right? Let's add some data in these documents. So consider some of the straightforward fields. I can have the name of the event. I could have the type of the event, whether it was a meetup, a conference, an online course, and other relevant information like the organizer of the event. If it was a course, I could have the instructor, and if it was a book, maybe the author, right? And I can also have a field for the rating. So the rating could be a number, and like I mentioned, you can use security rules to ensure that this is a number between maybe 1 to 10. So let's look at what a query would look like. So if I want to run a query and find out how many of my events were meetups, I would first need to create a Firestore reference, a reference to my Firestore DB, and then a reference to my activities collection like this. And once I have a reference in here, I can run a where field clause and find out how many of my activity types is equal to meetup. And if I want to find out how many of my events did I enjoy, maybe my enjoyment threshold is 7. So I can run a query and say, okay, so where field rating is greater than 7. So these are some of the simple queries that you can run with Firestore. And also I want to mention that Firestore uses indexing. So while you are storing data, it can be a bit slow because behind the scenes there's so much indexing going on, but retrieving data is so fast that it's really worth it. And that's typically what you're doing when you have an app. You're reading data and retrieving data. Now, in any of these activities, I'm typically working with different skills. Like in this Android meetup, I'm probably learning some Android, Kotlin, or Java. And I can keep track of these different skills as an array. I can also run a query and find out how many of my meetups in my activities collection did I work with skills such as Android and Kotlin using the array contains any clause. And hopefully you can see that it has been pretty straightforward and simple. So let's look at a quick demo of the Firestore console. So I hope you can see my screen. In here, as you can see on the left panel, there are various services that we just talked about in Firebase. I have the Firestore database clicked in here, and that's why I can see my Firestore DB. And as we know, it is an alternating pattern of collections and documents. It begins with a collection, and my first collection is the activities collection. And if I wanted, I could have more collections right here. I can create more collections in parallel at the same level as activities. And inside this activities, I can see the various documents that we created. And if I click on any of these documents, then I can see the fields, which are basically key value fields. And I can also create sub-collections either here or through code. In this example, you can see a sub-collection as well as data. And if I click on the sub-collection, I can again see more documents. And these documents can have data as well as sub-collections, and it goes on. So now let's talk about write-ups. So when I attend an event, I like posting about it, whether it is through like Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. Perhaps you guys do that as well. And I'd like to talk about how we can maintain all of this in our database. So one way to go about it is just store it as a long string, like in here, just store it as another simple field, right? That's one way to go about it. But another way to go about it is storing it as this nested JSON, where I can also keep track of associated fields, like the the date that I posted this on, or which platform I posted it on, maybe Twitter or Instagram. And this nested JSON structure is considered as a map in Firestore. Now, this is definitely one way you can go about it. You can also have an array of these maps, but I want you to consider what it would look like when you have built an app. So I've created a sketch in here of my app. And in here, I have various fields. As you can see, there are these different rows. And in here, I have a quick summary of all my activities. I could have the name of the event, the type of the event as well, and the organizer. But you can see that some of the fields are not displayed just yet. I could display them on the next screen when I click any of these rows. It would look something like this. I could have the same information and additional information like the rating, the skills, and even the write-ups. It could scroll down and show me because my write-ups might be really long. Now, if I'm planning to just display some of the basic summary information in here as a table, and then if the user doesn't really click on any of these rows, they just look at the basic summary, then you might be giving them more information. You might be downloading more information than you're actually displaying at this point of time. So if you have multiple write-ups, let's say you have several write-ups or any such field which has, you're downloading more than you need, then you might want to consider separating this and placing this in a sub-collection. So consider this trade-off when you are building your apps. So if I were to represent my write-ups as a sub-collection, then it would look like this. I would have my document for my activity, and then I can have another document for each write-up, maybe one for LinkedIn, one for Twitter, and then one for Instagram. And now I can have my activity document point to this sub-collection. And so this is what my DB would look like. So if I consider another example where each of my activity collections, activity documents point to their own sub-collections, then my DB looks really hierarchical now. And I could even have documents which probably don't have a sub-collection. Maybe I never wrote a write-up. So, that's all the flexibility we have. But consider this. Let's say I want to run a query and find out how many of my activities did I post about on Twitter. So for that, I would need to consult the sub-collections of the various documents. There's a sub-collection for the first document in here, and then there's the second sub-collection for this document. So I'm asking Firestore that, can you please go and look at all my sub-collections and then run this query. You're asking Firestore to kind of pretend all these sub-collections were one collection. And when you do that, then you need to use a collection group query. And I just want to mention that because that would require a little different code. It's just a slight difference, but it would index things a bit differently when you do that. Next, remember back in the day when we would go for these events, then you get to learn a lot, of course, in tech events. And also, for me, my favorite part was getting the free food, but also, yes, definitely making connections and meeting new people. So let's talk about how we can add some of these connections in our database. So I could, again, keep track of all my connections in their own documents, right? So maybe I want to keep track of information such as where I met them, in which event I met them, or what they do. And I can store all of that as, again, a very similar sub-collection structure that we just saw, right? That is definitely one way to go about it. Another way to go about it is I could separate these connections as another top-level collection. So that would look like this. So I have my activities collection that we had started off with. Each of these documents can point to their own write-up sub-collections, right? And then I can have my connections in the same level as my activities collection. Now, this is at the top level, right? And you can decide which approach to go with. You need to figure out what kind of queries you're going to run. If I want to run a query where I just want to know things about my connections and the query is independent of these activities, then this kind of approach would make more sense. So for example, if I want to look at all my connections that I made through all these events and find out how many of them work at a certain company, right? Then this approach makes more sense because I don't need to put them in a collection group query. And you can also go further and add more things about these folks, and maybe you want to keep track of the different conversations or some notes about them. So here this would look like our final DB. So let's wrap up. We talked about how Firestore is one of the 2 database services that is offered by Firebase. It is a NoSQL DB, and it is implemented as a document-based DB. And the important part of Firestore is that it is a collection of documents. So remember that the documents are retrieved as a whole and not partially. And you can only run shallow queries. And the beauty of Firestore is that you can leverage Google Cloud Services, and they take care of all the backend stuff like scaling and setting up servers. And Firestore has a really robust client library. They offer security rules for access. It is near real time. They have a strong reliability, and it's really easy to set up. They also provide offline support. They support transactions, pagination, and so much more. And as you have seen through these examples, that it is quite flexible. And that's really good because in app development, you want something that is iterative. So Firestore really supports that. And they also have offline support. They support transactions, pagination. So there's a lot that's amazing about Firestore. And I feel like I'm having my cake and eating it too. These are some of the references that I use. I primarily use the official Google Firebase documentation, their videos, and with Google I/O around the corner, you can learn more about Firebase and Firestore as well. So do check that out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Let's see. Okay, so what resources would you recommend to people who want to start their projects in Firebase Firestore?
So yeah, I primarily used the official videos. I really enjoyed that, the ones that were provided on the Firebase docs. And recently, I also noticed that Google also has this really nice sketch notes. So I think those are great resources to get started. I spend most of my time just watching the videos and also looking at the official blogs. So I highly recommend that.
Okay, great, thanks. And I think we have one more question. Is there a limit on how much nesting you can do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So since it is pretty hierarchical, you can go quite deep, but there is a limit of around 100. Like the limit to nesting is 100.
Okay. And does that affect your queries, the optimization? Like, does it take longer to query?
I mean, you'll have to go in that kind of a depth. So you will have to use additional queries, and you need to consider that as well.
Okay, great. And I think we have one more question. Is Cloud Spanner the best of both worlds?
I wouldn't know. So I'd love to know more from you, Anna. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe one of our Google experts could answer in the chat. And another question, am I correct if I say the real-time database is a document store?
Yeah. It is also document-based.
Okay. So, and is Firestore rather a key value store than a document store, or is it a hybrid?
So it is also document-based. When I try to figure out the difference between key value versus document, what I understood is when you have a document-based DB, you your database is aware of what is stored, and that helps with indexing, and it has more knowledge about what's going on. And key value is supposed to be, in my understanding, more simple than that. So it is a document based DB.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
all right, all right. Well, thanks, Navati. And sounds like Firebase is a great option, and I encourage everyone to connect with you. And
Sure thing.
we will move along here now to Deepa. And Deepa is also a women tech maker ambassador and a GDG organizer for San Jose. And she's here to talk about Google's Puppeteer and why it's the best choice as a web browser automation tool. So, hi, Deepa.
Yeah, hi. I just joined. Just give me a minute. Let me try to share my screen here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. There we are. Hello, everybody. Today we will learn how to pull the strings of a Puppeteer for web automation. My name is Deepa Subramanian. I am a QE developer at Adobe. I've been working in the as a test professional for over a decade. I also build front-end and full-stack web applications. I'm also one of the organizers at GDG. And fun fact about me is I'm a coffee addict. So if you're up in the San Francisco area, let's catch up with a cup of coffee. With that said, I just wanted to, for this session, I would expect you to have some knowledge on the following topics. For example, if you should know JavaScript ES6 features such as promises, callbacks, etc. And what is Node.js? It's a server-side platform built on Google Chrome V8 engine. And how does browsers work? What is a DOM? How to use DevTools? And you should also have some knowledge on testing. With that, I just wanted to say these would be the agenda for today. We'll start off with testing the usual pyramid, and then we'll talk about automation, why is it important, and what are the tools available. And we'll talk about the basics of Puppeteer, why Puppeteer, what are the upcoming features, etc. And finally, we'll see a small demo, and we'll wrap it up. So we all know that testing is an integral part of SDLC. And starting testing early in the process is always better, right? So today, many companies, almost all of the companies are following the agile methodology. So there's a shift in the testing efforts towards left. So it could be as close as possible to the development cycles. Thus, automation becomes an integral part and integral part of a continuous integration, continuous deployment environment. You should probably find out the repetitive tasks, identify them as early as possible, and automate them so that you don't miss any bugs, right? As bugs missed can be super expensive later to fix them. And with that said, there are a lot of web automation tools out in the market. If you try to Google, if you do a Google search and see what are the web automation tools, you will probably see about 50 of them. So 50 or so, even more. But the top tools are Selenium, Cypress, Cucumber, etc. So Selenium has been it's been around for a while, and Cypress is also, it's a JavaScript test UI test tool, and it's also catching up. And Cucumber is mainly used for behavior developed BDD tests. And just as you can see, in test automation, you always start off, there are 3 layers, distinct layers, where you start off with a lot of unit test coverage, and then you go up the pyramid, where the more coverage that you have at the bottom, it's better. You can also do end-to-end from one end to other too. When you do tests, it makes sense that if you start doing testing early, you basically could deliver a good quality software. So now we talked about testing, what is it? And now let's move on to what is Puppeteer. Puppeteer is a tool announced by Google in 2017. Before we dive into what is Puppeteer, we need to understand what is headless Chrome. Headless Chrome is nothing but Chrome without a UI, okay? So then what is Puppeteer? It's a headless automation tool, and it's also an API for Chrome and Chromium-based web browsers. So let's move on to the architecture of Puppeteer. You might have seen these diagrams or these pictures before, but I just wanted to give a visual here. At the bottom, you have headless Chrome, which has the latest JavaScript features with promises, etc., all the good stuff. And on the top, you have DevTool protocol, a complex remote API, which interacts with Chrome. And next comes Puppeteer, which is a high-level API interacting with headless Chrome. Basically, Puppeteer provides an JavaScript API, and it hides all the DevTool protocol complexities. So it provides a great low-level control over Chrome. And finally, at the top, you would have your scripts, which interacts with Puppeteer, which controls Chrome, right? And Firefox, there's support for Firefox, and you could also use it with Microsoft Edge because it's a Chromium-based web browser. There are extensions available where you can add them and then make it work with the Microsoft Edge browser as well. So this is a hierarchy of Puppeteer API. As you can see, Puppeteer interacts with Chrome DevTool protocol, and these are the different classes that Puppeteer has, which we'll be going through in a moment. But understand that a browser class could have different browser context here. And just to give you what are the main classes that we would always use for automation when interacting. So on top, you have Puppeteer class. It's a main class where you get the instance of Puppeteer. You would use it with either you use it with an import statement or require Puppeteer. I'll just show the code snippet in a moment. Just bear with me for that. So you have a browser class. You create Puppeteer that connects to the Chromium instance. You can use browser.launch for launching the browser instance. And you could also use something called as browser fetcher class, with which you can use different versions of Chrome or Firefox for your test. For example, if you want to use different versions of Chrome to test, then you could use this class. And page class usually provides interactions within a page. So there are other classes also available: accessibility, keyboard, touchscreen, emulators. There's a whole bunch of stuff that are available, but these are the major ones that you would use. So having said this, why do you want to use Puppeteer, right? So if you have used Selenium or any other tool, if you had tried to set up with other browsers, so you have to install the drivers for that. There's a whole bunch of setup that requires for that. But Puppeteer has zero setup. So all you got to do is run npm install Puppeteer. It's all done for you. So it's everything. It creates an up-to-date automated testing environment for you. And because it uses up-to-date, it gets the latest Chromium version, right? And if you're a beginner to start with this tool, there is an extension available called Puppeteer Recorder, which is very similar with Selenium IDE, where you can record the steps and you can try to mimic it again and start writing your own tests as well. So the learning curve, having said this, is not that steep. Whereas if you take Selenium or any other browser tools out there, there is a learning curve there. Because Puppeteer is event-driven, it removes most of the flakiness. There's no need for you to wait until something is done or add sleep times, etc. So because Puppeteer exposes browser context, you can parallelly run your tests as well. You can do a network interception. You can use Chrome extensions, which I'll show you in a moment, and then we can do UI interactions. You can emulate mobile viewports, generate PDFs, take screenshots. There's a whole bunch of amazing features with this tool. And apart from it, you have community support. So this tool is mainly focused for speed, security, stability, and simplicity. Okay. So now let's see some of these in code, right? Here's a code snippet for page interaction. First, at the top, you require Puppeteer. And if you want to launch a browser context, you create a context for the browser and you say puppeteer.launch. And if you want to interact with a new page, if you want to open up in a new tab, you use page. You create a page instance, and then you have to use browser.newPage for opening up in a new tab. And you could also use browser context in a way that you can operate multiple independent browser sessions. For example, I could open up one tab, and then I could also create a browser context here and open another one in an incognito mode, right? So that's one thing that you can do. And finally, you can close your browser using browser.close. This is how page interactions typically works with Puppeteer. And it's super fast. I'll show you in the demo shortly. So here's an example for mobile device emulation. Using devices method from Puppeteer class, I can emulate this pixel device. Here, I'm trying to search for Google Chrome. Inside of search, I'm using Chrome Word, and it tries to find the locator for Google Play, right? And then Puppeteer uses different locators like any other tool would. You can select using XPath, ID, class, links, and as how would you use in any other tools. So there are a lot of locator supports too. And it goes to this page and takes a screenshot. So if you see, there's page interaction that goes on inside this mobile device emulation too. So you don't have to test all these mobile web pages in a device, or you can simulate these things here itself. So here's another example for geo emulation. For example, if I want to emulate this particular location, right? All I have to do is I have to use this method called set geolocation. And note that I have given the latitude and the longitude here to get the location if I visit to this page, visit to Google Maps. And you could also override, if you have tested this location services, probably there are sometimes that Chrome gives you this, hey, you want to access your location. You can override that using this override permissions too, so that your test does not stop in between. So now moving on to network listeners. Puppeteer allows to add network event listeners and interceptions, meaning both network requests and responses can be modified or mocked if necessary. Here's an example where we are intercepting image. We are going to this page called Cat Lovers, and then we are trying to intercept all the images that has cats into dogs. For example, this is how it will be looking like. So all the cat, we are finding all the images and then mocking it with dog images here. So I also have a video for how to use Puppeteer along with Chrome extension Lighthouse. This is a extension available in Chrome. And what this extension does is it gives you performance. There's a lot of audit reports that it gives you. So you could visit to this, you can scan this QR code to visit this, to see this video. I have a lot of information on how to set it up and how to test a Chrome extension, which would be similar to other extensions as well. So more features now. So now the team is also moving efforts to support TypeScript. Initially, it was just only with JavaScript. Now they are also trying to support TypeScript. And with Puppeteer, you can emulate time zones. For example, you're setting up a calendar in mind, right? And if I'm setting it up in PST, but the person whom I'm setting it up with is an EST, those kind of things we can emulate, and we can use emulate time zones to do that. And you can also test dark and light mode using emulate media features, which is a method from the page class. And you could also test accessibility. For example, if you want to test different vision stuff, then you can emulate vision deficiencies. For example, there are some parameters as how to do this. You can use those methods to do that. And in Chrome version 100, there is a recorder panel inside of the Chrome developer tool, right? Which allows you to import and export user flow recordings as a JSON file. You can export these recordings as Puppeteer replay script. There is a replay library that is available for you to get those recordings. This is one of the latest ones as well. So in the future, now we have support for Firefox, and which is still in experimental. In the future, Puppeteer team plans to have support for Safari as well. The team is basically now trying to standardize a protocol that works on all browsers instead of instead of building on top of Chrome Developer Tool Protocol, like how this Puppeteer API is. So we learned about Puppeteer. We talked about all these good features and stuff. And now I just wanted to bring up the stats. Around the world, I just wanted to give a visual of how many people use Chrome. So around the globe, there are more than 65% of people who use Chrome, right? That makes sense that when you are trying to build your websites and automate them, it is much more important to test it in Chrome. So I also pulled this up from NPM Trends. Here is a here, if you see this graph, there is about 3 million downloads that has happened in 2022. If you see the same graph in 2021, all these tools were like Puppeteer, Selenium, and Cypress. They were all kind of used at the same level. So Cypress is now picking up, but so is Puppeteer here too. So now we talked about all the features and stuff, and how do you use Puppeteer? Basically, you can use it along with other testing frameworks such as Jest and Mocha. Jest is generally used for unit testing in JavaScript unit test framework. You can use it with that. And then Mocha works very well with Chai assertion library as well. So these are some of the popular frameworks that you could use along with Puppeteer. So I have a small demo. So this is a demo with Jest framework. I pulled this demo from one of the online resources. So here, for example, I'm using page object model where I wrote an end-to-end test. So basically the test goes, visits a page and then sees looks for whether the nav bar is displayed. It takes a screenshot, and then it goes to another page in the same URL, it just goes to another link where it looks for the feedback and it fills up the feedback form, and it also goes and logs into the application. So if you go ahead and see, here is Puppeteer Jest configuration. So whenever you try to install Puppeteer and Jest, this configuration is already given, and the headless version is set to true. So if I run these tests, it's going to be running in headless mode. So where is it? It goes, the first test is, let's give it a couple of, yeah. So the first test is all 3 tests passed, and the time taken is only 5 seconds. So as you can see, it's super fast. If I show it to you in the browser one, it's going to be pretty quick too. So if I go ahead, if I set it to false, it opens up in Chromium. I picked this example from one of the online resources here. So if you can see, it just goes, boom, it's done. So this is that quick it's super fast that you don't want to run these things on the browser mode on, because it's going to take some time when you're doing it during production, on production websites. So this is how Puppeteer works with Jest framework. So to summarize, we talked a lot about testing, test automation and the tools available. What is Puppeteer? Why you should use it? I talked about all of those good stuff like geolocation, mobile emulation, network listeners, screenshots, generating PDFs, etc. And then it directly works with Chrome Developer Protocol, so it's very easy to do that. And you don't, it's basically using the DOM elements directly from there. So you don't have to unnecessarily wait and all those good stuff we saw. And we also know that it can be used with Jest or with Mocha. And I just showed you a small demo as well. So to wrap it up, I just wanted to say that Puppeteer would be the go-to tool. If you are looking for a tool for speed and performance, this would be the go-to tool over portability and compatibility. So with that said, give it a spin. And once again, my name is Deepa. These are the ways that you could connect with me online. And here are my references. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, Deepa, thank you so much. That was a lot of information. I think we have quite a few questions. So the first one, could you talk a little bit about how you might use Puppeteer for performance testing? Like which aspects of performance would be measured?
I have a video about this, so I can post this link. So you can use, there are tools, if you are trying to use Lighthouse, I can post this link here. How do I post this? I'm posting it in the chat here. So there are ways to do this. So if you can install Lighthouse Chrome extension, it basically runs an audit. It gives you performance. It gives you accessibility score. It gives you it gives you best practices, and it also gives you another metric too. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into. You can basically run these things and see how your performance of your app is. And also, there are times that you could use network throttling too. So I would say watch this video, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, great. And do you prefer Mocha since you're a coffee
Yeah,
fan?
because it has an assertion library, right? So yes, with Jest, it's just you can only do unit tests. But if you're looking for more of an end-to-end and stuff like that, if you are familiar with Mocha, yes. I have the same demo with Mocha as well. If anybody is interested, I can pass on my GitHub as well.
Okay, great.
And that's built with the builder pattern, so it's not a page object.
Thank you. Can you use Puppeteer to emulate a Google bot?
I have no idea. I've not done that.
Okay. The next
But most
question.
of the things, if you can emulate anything, if you can use it as from if it's a browser based, and if it can if you can use that in a browser, I think you can emulate anything.
And can you use it for mobile apps?
Mobile apps, no. You can only use it for mobile pages. Like you can emulate those devices, but then I don't think you can use it for mobile apps.
Right, because it's browser based. Like
how many testing is enough? Good question. It depends on how you start. Where do you start your testing? And if your tests are consistently, how you do the test coverage? That's a whole big topic to cover one day on the sliding talk.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for now, and we're going to wrap up with some final words and I guess a drawing for some raffle prizes. So thank you so much, Deepa, and I encourage everyone to connect with you.
Mm-hmm. And please do ask questions in Slack if you have any, or reach out to me in LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have the Slack channel open for questions. All right, and
okay, I'm muted. So hi again, and then welcome again to the final HD moments of IWD North America. So we are going to have our raffle prize draw happening now, and thank you, just for staying with us till the end. And then this is an exciting moment. Actually, I may have maybe to. Yes, actually, this is what I was looking for. Thank you, Corina. So we are going to have this wheel actually showing us who is going to win the prize of Pixel phone. So yeah, let's just click to spin and let's see who is the winner. Woohoo! Okay, Angie. Congratulations. We will just get in touch with you for the further details. And like we said always, feel free to just fill out the feedback survey. So that way we will just run some, other raffle prizes to give out to you, and then we will contact you. If you don't fill out it, you will miss lots of raffle prizes that we are going to distribute. So thank you so much. And to close the event, actually, to conclude the event, I would like to thank everyone, to build this event successfully. Our WTM ambassadors, our speakers, our team, Corina, Carolina, who dedicatedly just worked on this event. So yeah, I am really happy to have you all join us. And then we celebrated the progress, not perfection. And then just remember, it's just one step of a time. So that leads to actually a better, version of yourself. So thank you. And then again, the share feedback form just here. Let's just maybe make it a little bit, where is it? Let me stop my screen so you can see the feedback form here reflecting. And yeah, hope to see you again. And then just keep in touch.